Ready?
Yes.
1,
2, 3, go.
Hey everyone, welcome to the brand new episode of The Indian Filmmaker, and I hope that you guys have seen our previous video. Basically, it is an introduction video to our channel and what we do on this channel. And if you guys haven't seen that video, then check for the link in the description box below, or you can click on this annotation too. So let me ask you a question. What does it take to make a short film? A good location, a friend who owns a high-end DSLR, and who obviously knows some stuff about how to use that DSLR. And even if he doesn't know, it doesn't matter, right? At least he has a DSLR. Some good looking friends who think they can act. Some friends who can help you out with shooting. And a director, of course. So guys, let's shoot. Wait. What are we gonna shoot? So that is what exactly happened with us, like when we were shooting our first short film, and that happened like 4 years ago. And we don't want you guys to repeat the same mistake which we did back in the time. And that is why we are creating a playlist of 6 episodes which will guide you on a basic level on how to make a short film. So how do you write a story? How? For every story you need a concept. As they say, lack of money is no obstacle, but lack of an idea is an obstacle. Lack of an idea is an obstacle, guys. So you can create concepts at any point of time, and while riding a bike,
While reading, while traveling, while dating a girl, and the best place.
I think that's understood. That's not a place where you should shoot. So now you guys must be having some concepts. Make sure that you write those concepts down in some book or in your diary or somewhere, and make sure that you speak with your teammates or speak with your friends about those concepts, and make sure you work out a bit on those. How do you structure your concept into a story? So there is this thing called the 3-act structure, and what the 3-act structure basically is, as you guys must be knowing, every film has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's your 3-act structure. What a 3-act structure does is that it helps you structure your story and stops you from getting lost while writing. In the 3-act structure, you have the first act, which is the setup or the introduction. In this act, we are introduced to the major characters of the film, or we get to know about the time placement of this film, and this act lasts for about 25 to 30 minutes depending upon the length of the movie. Act 1 should always have a strong opening so that you can grab your viewers' attention, and if you don't have a strong opening, viewers won't be interested in watching your film or reading your story. For example, this scene from ZNMD is a strong story opener. Or in the movie Wake Up Sid, a guy preparing for his exam. In action movies, the movie starts with an action sequence. Act 1 ends with the rise of a sudden problem. Suppose this scene from ZNMD where Imran throws Arjun's phone from the car. This leads them into a fight. So you can see there is a sudden rise of a problem. That is the point where the Act 1 ends. This is known as the plot point. And this is where the movie takes a different turn. This is a time when the Act 2, the confrontation, starts, and it is the longest act in the entire structure. It starts from 30 to 35 minutes depending upon the length of the movie, and this act is divided into 2 parts. In this act, the main protagonist tries to face the problem. For example, this scene from Wake Up Sid. As you can see, Sid tries to go to the office. In ZNMD, Arjun faces his biggest problem and starts preparing for it. The protagonist faces many problems, many obstacles in the first part of Act 2, and this leads us to the turning point of the film, which is known as the midpoint. In India, we have a different term for that. Yes, you guessed it right. It's known as the interval. Basically, it is the midpoint climax. At this point, the lead protagonist will face his biggest problem, or will have a devastating failure, or it will be the turning point of the story where the lead protagonist will have something powerful to reveal to the audience, or have his major success.
In the movie ZNMD, we see that Natasha has a problem with Leila in the first half of Act 2. And at midpoint, Natasha appears. In the movie Dil Dhadakne Do, in the first half of Act 2, we see that Aisha is trying to talk to her mother about the problems between her and Manav, and at the midpoint, we get to know that she wants to divorce him, and Sunny appears in the film for the first time.
In the movie Slumdog Millionaire, we see in the first part of Act 2 that Jamal loses Latika, and right at the midpoint climax, we see that he again finds her. It is not compulsory that every story must be having a midpoint climax. Some stories are really different and really out of this world. Writing Act 2 after the midpoint climax gets way too difficult and a bit more complicated if you don't know what the 3-act structure is. In the second half of Act 2, things get a little bit serious. If the first half of Act 2 was about the protagonist facing the problem, then the second half of Act 2 will be the protagonist trying to fight against the problem. For example, in the movie Tare Zameen Par, we see to it that Ishaan Awasthi in the first half of Act 2 is frustrated of his studies and he doesn't want to go to boarding school, and at the midpoint climax his new teacher appears for the first time in the movie. In the second half of Act 2, he starts enjoying studies. At midpoint, if our protagonist has faced some failure, then at the second plot point he will face a false defeat. We reach to the second plot point, which is known as the Act 2 climax or Act 2 turning point. At this point, we as a viewer start thinking that everything is going well and fine, as this scene in Wake Up Sid, where Sid gets his first payment and his dad accepts him and is going back to his house, which leads us to the third act, which is known as the climax. Act 3 lasts about 15 to 30 minutes depending upon the length of the movie, and sometimes in Act 3 we have the Act 3 twist. This usually happens in suspense movies or thriller movies such as Talash or detective movies like Detective Bhyomkesh Bakshi, but every story doesn't end with a proper climax. Some movies have open endings such as ZNMD. And at last we have a small point which is known as the resolution or the denouement, which comes after the climax. Basically what happens in this part is that we get to see what happened to other characters, or we try to tie up the loose ends of the film, and a good example for this is the resolution song in ZNMD. So this is what the 3-act structure is, and I hope that it will help you convert your concepts into stories and keep writing some awesome stuff. So I'll catch you guys next week. Bye guys.
Please like, share, comment and subscribe to the Indian Filmmaker. ये रिंगटोन था, इसको फिर
कुछ भी करो, ये रिंगटोन पैसा थोड़ा डांस ऑन शाम इंटरनेट। हेलो, हाँ
कर दूँ जाके।